Under the blistering dawn sky, ancient Egypt rouses not with a gentle stretch, but with the urgent promise of the Nile's cool waters. Imagine waking to the sound of sleepy herons dipping their beaks into glassy currents, while family members gather at clay-lined basins carved into the riverbank. Here, you dip your cup into the swirling flow, its silt-laden taste lingering on your tongue. With palms dusted in pale natron and ash, you rub your skin until the mud and sweat dissolve, rinsing life back into every pore. Can you feel that sharp bite of gritty paste as it scrubs away the heavy night? Each breath carries the scent of damp reeds and baked earth, awakening your senses for the day ahead. Breakfast couldn't be simpler or more essential. A slab of sun-baked barley bread and a mug of foaming beer. Tear off a chunk of crust so thick it cracks like dry clay. Then, dunk it into the bubbling amber brew freshly pulled from earthen kilns. That head of foam tickles your lips as you drink, the same liquid that fuels laborers and pays tribute to pharaohs alike. To the mighty ruler, this beverage is liquid gold. To you, it is survival distilled, a sturdy shield against exhaustion. Have you ever considered that this simple meal, shared by rich and poor alike, binds your destiny to the rhythm of harvests and the whims of the Nile's annual flood? By mid-morning, the sun reigns supreme, transforming the fields into a shimmering expanse of molten gold. You heft a woven basket brimming with sun-dried mud bricks, each block heavy enough to anchor hopes of eternity. Every step kicks up powdered dust that clings to your sweat-slick skin, and your shoulders burn under the unrelenting heat. Yet even amid this grueling toil, the world around you thrums with life. Oxen plough in neat furrows, their hoofbeats echoing like distant drums, while labour gangs chant as they lift stones destined for majestic pyramids. Not far away, a bustling marketplace teems with colour and sound. Bolts of linen dyed in deep indigo and saffron sway from wooden racks, tempting buyers with their silky sheen. Artisans carve tiny scarab amulets, each one a miniature masterpiece imbued with protective magic. Potters spin clay on wheels, shaping jugs that will hold precious oils and grains. Did you ever imagine that Egyptian women not only managed households, but also owned land, ran thriving stalls, and negotiated the terms of divorce? Their voices, strong, confident, and unafraid, rise above the merchant cries, proving that autonomy could flourish even in a world ruled by gods and kings. When your back aches and your throat parches, you slip under the shade of a linen awning to visit a healer's stall. There's no sterile clinic here, only alabaster jars lined in neat rows, filled with crushed herbs, powdered minerals, and viscous oils imported from distant lands. The healer, draped in linen dyed the color of ripe dates, grinds malachite into a green paste, then blends it with honey and toasted garlic. A soft incantation escapes their lips, merging science with spellcraft in perfect harmony. As you lean forward, the cool paste pressed to your temples brings immediate relief. Magic and medicine entwined like the papyrus reeds on the riverbank. By the time the sun reaches its zenith, lazy water lilies float atop the river, their petals gleaming like jewels against a backdrop of rippling emerald. Fishermen stand knee-deep in the current, their reed baskets poised to trap shimmering tilapia and fat catfish. With each haul, the creatures flip and glint, scales catching light like scattered stars. The tang of roasted fish drifts on a breeze that feels as gentle as a lover's sigh. Have you ever paused to watch the subtle dance between light and water, where every ripple tells a story of creation and renewal? In this world, the line between the mundane and the miraculous blurs with every breath. As the afternoon sun dips lower, the marketplace's hum gives way to a sonorous chorus of temple bells. Their deep, resonant tones roll across the town, summoning worshippers from every corner like an ancient call to communion. You pause at the threshold of polished limestone steps, smoothing the wrinkles from your linen kilt before crossing the threshold. Have you ever hesitated at the mouth of a sacred hall, sensing the weight of centuries pressing upon you? Inside, the air is thick with incense, frankincense from far-off Punt, mingling with the sweet spice of myrrh. Columns carved into papyrus stalks soar overhead, their capitals decorated with curling lotus motifs that seem to breathe in the flickering lamplight. Statues of Ra, Isis, and Osiris loom silently, their stone eyes inlaid with lapis lazuli that gleams like captured stars. You kneel before a low altar, placing 2 loaves of barley bread and a small jug of beer upon a polished slab. A single drop of perfumed oil falls from your fingers, leaving a dark, fragrant stain. In this moment, you are both supplicant and witness to the divine, connected to a cosmic order far grander than your daily toil. Emerging from the temple, you find artisans at work in adjacent workshops. Stonecutters chisel granite blocks with bronze-tipped mallets, each strike sending echoes like distant thunder. Their hands move with practiced precision, coaxing smooth surfaces from rugged boulders destined for obelisks or statues of pharaohs. Nearby, painters daub hieroglyphs in brilliant reds, blues, and golds, each symbol a microcosm of myth and memory. Can you imagine a written language so beautiful that every letter is a miniature masterpiece? Here, communication and decoration merge seamlessly, elevating everyday writing to sacred art. As shadows lengthen, the scent of brewing incense is joined by the aroma of cooking. Women fan small hearth fires beneath clay pots brimming with pottage. Stews of lentils, onions, and garlic, mingled with fresh herbs. You bite into a warm slice of flatbread, its soft interior speckled with sesame seeds, and sip sweetened wine, pressed from local grapes. Farmers returning from the fields trade their burdens for fresh loaves and jars of honey, their laughter rising above the crackle of cooking fires. When twilight falls, a chorus of frogs takes over, their croaks echoing across lily-studded canals. Families gather along the riverbanks, settling onto mats woven from papyrus reeds. Children chase fireflies while elders recount tales of gods and heroes beneath a canopy of stars. Torches flicker on funerary barges, casting golden halos on dark waters as priests intone prayers for safe passage to the afterlife. Have you ever watched flame and shadow dance across rippling water, feeling as though both life and death move in unison? In the distance, the silhouette of a reed hut beckons, a humble home woven from plants that thrive beside the Nile. You step inside, greeted by the propped-open doorframe that catches the cool night breeze. The interior is sparse, a low platform, draped in linen, clay lamps half buried in sand, and a small chest containing oils, amulets, and a roll of papyrus. Before you lie 2 simple offerings, a bit of bread and beer, left for the house's protective spirit. You whisper a soft prayer, thanking the gods for another cycle of sunrises and sunsets. Lulled by the river's gentle murmur, you press your forehead to the woven mat. The last echoes of temple bells and market cries fade into memories as your eyelids grow heavy. Dreams beckon with visions of crocodile-guarded temples, celestial boats guided by Osiris himself, and the promise that tomorrow's sunrise will bring another day of shaping stone, brewing beer, and honoring the divine. Dawns. Rituals may be the day's bookends, but midday along the Nile pulses with its own sacred rhythm. The floodplain, still damp from last season's deluge, now bakes beneath the relentless sun, its fertile promise giving way to a shimmering haze. Farmers guide oxen through waterlogged furrows, their wooden plows slicing through mud that clings, like wet paint. Each furrow surrenders a promise, golden grains that will rise in communal ovens and fill the air with toasty sweetness. You pause at a canal's edge, cupping your hands to drink. The water tastes of life itself, mineral-rich, with a faint tang of algae and a whisper of crocodile beneath its surface. Have you ever tasted a river's history? Here, civilizations rise and recede like waves, and every sip connects you to millennia of ancestors who depended on this same lifeblood. Beyond the fields stand mud-brick homes topped with thatched roofs of papyrus and palm fronds. You approach one such dwelling, its low doorframe etched with protective symbols and painted in vibrant ochre. Inside, a family gathers around a low table fashioned from split reeds. The matriarch, her braided hair entwined with beads of carnelian, fans a clay brazier that warms jars of honey and spiced goat cheese. Children giggle, snatching dates and figs from woven baskets. Their laughter rings across the courtyard like a promise of renewal. Suddenly, the sky darkens, not with clouds, but with the beating wings of birds. A flock of ibises descends in a choreographed dance, their long curves tracing patterns across the sunlit sky. They settle onto mud banks, their curved bills probing for shellfish. Nearby, fishermen haul nets weighted with stone, bronze hooks glinting in the light. With each haul, silvery fish flip and gleam, scales reflecting mosaic sunlight. A boy, no more than 10, scoops up a wriggling catch, his eyes alight with triumph. Imagine mastering the river's bounty before you've even grown enough to shave. As afternoon drifts toward evening, temple processions snaking through town become the day's spectacle. Priests clad in white linen and ostrich feather headdresses march to the steady beat of hand drums and rattles. Musicians follow, their fingers coaxing haunting melodies from harps carved like lotus blossoms. The procession advances along streets, flanked by mud brick facades painted in geometric patterns, triangles and zigzags that seem to pulse under torchlight. At its head, a gilded bark cradles a god statue, its polished wood gleaming like a mirror to the heavens. Worshippers pour libations of oil and wine into the street's shallow gutters, calling blessings upon their homes and families. When the ceremony ends, you linger in the temple precinct, where animal offerings, ducks, goats, and occasionally a bull, are prepared by butchers whose skill turns sinew and bone into sacred sustenance. Smoke coils from sacrificial fires, carrying prayers upward in ribbons of fragrant smoke. Have you ever sensed that a single breath of incense could bridge earth and sky? Here, each ember carries hope, mourning, and devotion into the divine realm. Nights spent by the Nile are a festival of senses. The gentle slap of oars against water, the muted thrum of drumbeats echoing from distant shrines, the soft song of a neighbor's lullaby drifting through open doorways, all weave into the tapestry. Of evening, you wander to the riverbank, where families lounge on mats, sharing stories of ancestors whose names were carved in stone. Stars ignite the vault above in patterns that mirror hieroglyphs. Orion's belt becomes Osiris's staff. The Pleiades cluster echoes the 7 Hathor festivals. Crouched beside a crackling fire, you sip a warming cup of date wine, rich, spiced with cinnamon and ginger. The sweet heat spreads through your chest as elders recount the tale of the Nile serpent, Apep, whose nightly battles with Ra symbolize the eternal struggle between chaos and order. In that moment, do you not feel yourself caught between worlds, held, fast by myth, yet anchored in daily survival? Before dawn arrives once more, you make your final offering at a small shrine hidden beneath date palms. A figurine of Bastet, carved from alabaster and scented with jasmine oil, rests atop a limestone plinth. You lay down a ribbon of woven flax and whisper thanks for protection against snakes, scorpions, and wandering spirits. The hush of night feels sacred here, as if the world itself holds its breath until morning's first light. This is life on the Nile, an unbroken cycle of labor and worship, community and solitude, mortality and the promise of eternity. In every crack of mud brick, every pulse of river water, and every chorus of temple bells, you sense a grand design weaving human and divine together. As the first glow of dawn stirs the horizon, you rise again, ready to dive back into the river's embrace and become part of its endless story. By the time your body aches with the weight of stone and sun, the riverbank offers a final sanctuary before dusk. Palm-lined groves cast elongated shadows over sandy shores, and families lounge beneath the fronds, sharing simple joys. Freshly baked flatbreads still warm from clay ovens, honey-sweetened wine pressed from sun-ripened grapes, and the laughter of children weaving between date palms. A gentle breeze carries the scent of jasmine and lotus, weaving through the air like a whispered blessing. Here, a storyteller gathers a small crowd, tracing hieroglyphs in the sand with a charred stick. His rich baritone recounts the exploits of Pharaoh Khufu and the workers who raised the Great Pyramid, their sweat glistening like diamonds against the white limestone. Have you ever wondered how thousands of souls moved blocks weighing tons without cranes or pulleys? Each word conjures images of human determination and divine purpose, reminding you that this land belongs as much to its builders as it does to its gods. When the sky transitions from honeyed gold to deep indigo, the call of the night watch echoes across the river. Young men, clad in short kilts and armed with bronze-tipped spears, patrol the perimeter of the village, their eyes scanning for crocodiles that slip silently between water and land. You join them for a patrol, the torchlight casting flickering patterns on the dunes. The air grows cool, and the insects trill in a symphony only nature could compose. Imagine walking barefoot on sand still warm from the day, your every step a tactile link to this ancient earth. Suddenly, a guttural hiss stops you in your tracks, a massive croc emerging from the shadows. The watchman raises his torch, backlighting the beast's armored silhouette. Hearts pounding, you and your companions form a loose circle, chanting protective hymns to Sobek, the crocodile god. With each invocation, the creature's eyes reflect the torchlight like molten gold. Then it slips back into the dark current, leaving a ring of ripples as its only trace. In that moment, you realize just how thin the boundary between civilization and wilderness truly is here by the Nile. After the patrol, you return to the village's communal hearth where elders share a quiet meal. Clay bowls of lentil stew steam in the torchlight, and loaves of barley bread are passed hand to hand. The chatter is low, respectful, a gentle lullaby against the river's steady murmur. Stories of the day's harvest mingle with plans for tomorrow's offerings to the temple. You lean back against a woven reed mat, sipping date wine and savoring the warmth spreading through your chest. Later, smoke from incense coils hangs heavy in small shrine rooms dotted around the village. Each shrine honors a different deity: Hathor for joy and music, Thoth for wisdom and writing, Sekhmet for healing and protection. You step into one where the golden mask of Anubis peers from a niche lit by oil lamps. Kneeling, you press your palm to cool stone and leave an offering of sweet figs. A single flute note drifts through an open window, the melody both melancholy and uplifting. Have you ever felt music echo through your bones, stirring memories older than your own life? Here, every sound is both prayer and celebration. As the moon climbs high, the village retreats into silence. Only the soft croak of frogs and the lapping of water on the shore remain. You wander back to your reed hut, pausing to watch how moonlight transforms the papyrus stalks into ghostly silhouettes. The air smells of damp earth and night-blooming flowers. Inside, your simple bedding of woven mats waits, and the oil lamp's flame flickers against the hut's woven walls. Before sleep claims you, you roll out a strip of papyrus and dip reed brush into ink. With practiced strokes, you record the day's events, another ritual binding you to this timeless land. Each symbol is a promise that tomorrow's sunrise will renew the cycle, from cleansing in the Nile to prayer in the temple, from harvest feasts to crocodile patrols. In ancient Egypt, every day writes a new chapter in humanity's enduring epic. Tucked into your modest bed, you listen to the river's lullaby, its rhythmic pulse echoing the heartbeat of civilization itself. As your eyes close, the boundary between reality and dream blurs. Under the watchful gaze of countless stars, you drift into sleep, cradled by the Nile's eternal embrace and the promise of another day woven from stone, water, and story. Long before dawn's first glow, the village stirs with whispers of expectation. In the heart of each home, woven reed lamps sputter to life, casting a soft amber glow on walls painted with protective hieroglyphs. Mothers slip from slumber to prepare porridge of roasted emmer wheat, simmered with dates and lightly sweetened with honey. Can you imagine the comfort of a warm bowl while the world still slumbers? Steam curls upward in graceful twists, carrying the scent of sweet grains and desert air. Children awaken, rubbing sleep from their eyes as they gather around low tables. Here lessons begin not with textbooks, but with wooden boards inscribed with hieroglyphic practice lines. A patient tutor guides tiny hands, tracing each symbol. Ankh for life, Djed for stability, was for power. As reed brushes glide across wet plaster, young scribes learn that in Egypt, to write is to wield influence. Have you ever felt the thrill of mastering words that carry both sound and story? Beyond, the courtyard, craftsmen shape daily life. Basket weavers twist reeds with nimble fingers, creating containers that will hold grain, fish, or oil. Leatherworkers tan hides with tannins extracted from acacia bark, then stitch sandals that will protect feet from blistering sands. Each object binds community members to the land, an intimate dance of skill and resource, form and function. Not far from these workshops, farmers tend irrigation channels dug by hand. These narrow trenches ferry the Nile's life-giving waters to fields of wheat, flax, and vegetables. At the canal's edge, workers raise shaduf levers, a long pole with a bucket on one end and a counterweight on the other, to lift water with effortless grace. You step forward, dipping the bucket into the current. The smooth rope coils between your calloused fingers. When the bucket tips over a planting furrow, you watch as droplets sparkle in the sunlight, each one a tiny promise of growth. Is there any sight more hopeful than young shoots emerging from damp, dark soil? As the sun ascends to its zenith once more, the village marketplace hums with renewed energy. Bakers haul out golden loaves from clay ovens sealed with reeds and mud. Their crusts crackle as they slide the bread into woven baskets, still warm, enough to steam. Nearby, merchants weigh dates and figs on balance scales, their brass pans glinting like twin moons. The air is thick with the heady perfume of spices. Cumin, coriander, and fennel seeds toasted to release their oils. Amid this bustle, a travelling troupe arrives to entertain. Musicians pluck lyres while dancers in linen skirts swirl to the lilting melody. Masks depicting gods and demons lend an air of ritual each time masks catch the sunlight. Laugh lines crease faces as onlookers clap and cheer, swept up in the performance's cadence. Have you ever been swept away by music so ancient it resonates in your bones? Here, art is not separate from life. It is life's very pulse. Later, as afternoon light turns soft and golden, you visit the temple school, where young priests study astronomy and ritual. Stone tablets display star charts, Orion aligned with Osiris's rebirth, Sirius heralding the Nile's flood. The head scribe points to each constellation, reciting verses that connect heaven and earth. By learning these patterns, priests ensure the world remains in balance, crops flourish, floods are gentle, and Pharaoh's reign is secure. Can you sense the weight of knowledge that rests on these tablets? When the day's lessons finish, you walk along a canal flanked by papyrus reeds, so tall they rustle like a living curtain. Frogs croak in chorus, and insects hum their evening anthem. You pause to watch a water snake glide beneath lily pads, its slender body casting rippling shadows. On the sandy bottom, a lone fisherman polishes his nets by torchlight, preparing for tonight's work. The river's surface reflects flickering starlight, as if the heavens have fallen into its embrace. Before returning home, you enter a communal granary, a vaulted mud-brick chamber filled with sacks of barley, wheat, and flax seeds. Guardians inspect each bundle, marking them with symbols that record harvest dates and tithes owed to the temple. This storehouse is more than a pantry. It is the community's security against famine and drought. Every grain preserved here represents months of toil and hope. Have you ever considered the silent power of stored abundance, waiting to feed generations? As evening deepens, a final ceremony unfolds at the riverbank. Torches ring the shoreline, and families release small clay lamps onto the water, each fire a silent prayer for health, prosperity, and safe return of loved ones. The lamps drift away in drifting trails of light, their flickering glow mirrored by stars overhead. It feels as though earth and sky have become one tapestry of flame and shadow. Finally, you return to your reed hut, heart full from another day woven in devotion, labor, and wonder. The hush of night settles over the village, broken only by the river's rhythmic pulse. You light a single oil lamp and unroll a fresh papyrus scroll. With reed brush in hand, you document the day's marvels, from children mastering hieroglyphs to the shimmering dance of lamps on water. Each stroke binds you closer to this land, its people, its gods, its endless cycles of life and memory. As your eyelids grow heavy, you extinguish the lamp and lay down on woven mats. Above you, palm fronds rustle in a gentle breeze, and the Nile's melody lulls your spirit. In ancient Egypt, every day is both ordinary and divine. Each moment a testament to humanity's capacity to craft beauty, find meaning, and endure through the ages. Night deepens, but life along the Nile never truly sleeps. Torches flicker against mud brick walls as fishermen push their boats into shadowed currents for an all-night trawl. Their nets, woven from palm fibers, glide silently beneath the surface. Have you ever felt the thrill of pulling a net heavy with writhing creatures, each one a tale of river depths? You join them for a time, muscles straining as you haul in a silver school, the moonlight glinting off each scale like scattered stars. By midnight, the village square hosts a low-key celebration, a feast in honor of Hathor, goddess of joy and music. Drums beat a steady rhythm, inviting dancers to weave between columns of date palms. The air thrums with energy, feet stamp in unison, voices rise in song, and the night sky itself seems to pulse with life. You think back to the simple chores of that morning, cleaning in the Nile, hauling bricks, trading in the marketplace, and marvel at how the cycle of labor and worship interlaces so seamlessly here. When the celebration winds down, you steal a quiet moment by a secluded canal. The water moves like liquid ink, reflecting torchlight and moonbeams in a swaying mosaic. Fireflies spark along the banks, their soft glow like fleeting notes in a symphony. You trace hieroglyphs in the damp sand, Ankh, Jed, Was, symbols of life, stability, and power. Each curve and line is a prayer, a remembrance of what endures beyond flesh and time. Near the river's bend, you encounter the Night Watch once more. They share roasted fish wrapped in fig leaves, passing pieces to you with nods of camaraderie. The warmth of the meal and the crackle of fire bind you together against the cool desert air. You swap tales of crocodile encounters and temple visions, laughter mingling with the river's timeless murmur. Is there any bond as strong as shared stories under starlit skies? Before the first hint of dawn, you make your final pilgrimage to a small shrine perched on a riverbank outcrop. Here, a statue of Osiris stands sentinel, eyes lifted to the heavens. You place a woven bracelet of lapis and carnelian at its base, a token of gratitude for another cycle of breath and being. With incense in hand, you whisper a vow to honor the river's lessons, to carry its rhythm in your heart, and to remember that every day here is a gift woven from water, stone, and story. As you turn toward home, the horizon blushes with pre-dawn light. The village sleeps, save for a few early risers already heading toward the Nile. You pause on a small footbridge, watching currents spiral around bent reeds. In their eddies, you see reflections of life's mysteries, birth and death, toil and celebration. The mundane and the miraculous intertwine so completely that they become indistinguishable. Finally, you step into your reed hut, where the night's chill lingers in corners untouched by torchlight. You settle onto your mat, the images of the day, children's laughter, temple flames, river rituals, dancing behind closed lids. In the hush before sleep, you feel the pulse of Egypt's heart. Beneath your chest, a steady beat carrying echoes of generations past. In ancient Egypt, every sunrise and sunset bookend an existence woven from tangible labor and ethereal faith. Here, the Nile is both provider and teacher, shaping lives with its currents and myths, with its mysteries. And as you drift into dreams, you carry forward its timeless song, knowing that tomorrow you will rise once more to greet the river and become part of its endless epic. Under a sky that blazes with central Mexico's searing sun, Teotihuacan emerges on the horizon like a sleeping giant stirring to life. Imagine approaching a city laid out with the precision of the gods themselves. Broad avenues stretching straight as obsidian blades, flanked by towering pyramids whose stone faces burn gold at dawn. Have you ever walked into a place so vast that your footsteps echo like distant thunder? Here, nearly 2,000 years ago, some 100,000 souls built a metropolis without alphabet or script. Yet their vision speaks across centuries in stone and shadow. You pause at the edge of the Avenue of the Dead, Teotihuacan's Grand Boulevard, where parallel walls of volcanic rock rise 10 feet high, guiding you toward the city's heart. Along its length, plazas open like giant plazas on a chessboard, each bounded by low platforms once crowded with priests, merchants, and dancers. From above, this network of paths resembles the veins of a cosmic being, arteries channeling life into every corner of a sprawling urban organism. Can you sense the pulse of such an engineered marvel? Nearby, the Pyramid of the Moon stands sentinel, its broad terraces stacked in perfect symmetry. Though dwarfed by its larger sibling, the Pyramid of the Sun, Moon Mountain commands reverence. Its summit once cradled stone altars where ceremonies invoked lunar cycles and agricultural rites. Pilgrims ascended zigzagging staircases, their hearts pounding to each footstep, offering jade figurines and scented resins in exchange for divine favor. As you imagine the procession, the flutter of colorful feathers, the murmur of prayers, the glint of turquoise necklaces, you realize Teotihuacan was equal parts city and sacred theater. But it is the temple of the Feathered Serpent, often called the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, that steals the breath. Emerging from the earth like a layered serpent rising to the sky, its sculpted friezes depict writhing feathered bodies and fanged maws. Each level of the stepped pyramid is ringed by mosaic masks of painted stone, emerald-hued serpent heads crowned with quetzal feathers, their piercing eyes seeming to follow you as you circle the structure. Have you ever felt watched by a creature that is both bird and snake, sky and earth intertwined? Here, mythology breathes in 3 dimensions. Around the temple's base, ritual plazas once thronged with supplicants. The ground is speckled with the shards of obsidian blades and fragments of sacrificial pottery. Archaeologists believe over 200 young men, each chosen for their strength and purity, were offered in blood rituals to sustain cosmic harmony. Imagine the solemn atmosphere, drums pounding like thunder, conch shells blaring like distant storms, priests in jaguar skins chanting an ancient liturgy. Their voices rose in a crescendo, building toward a moment when a blade met flesh and the first blood dripped onto the sacrificial stone. Could there be a more visceral testament to the interplay of life, death, and renewal? Beneath the temple, hidden corridors plunge into the earth. Carved tunnels wind for hundreds of feet, lined with plastered walls once painted in bright pigments. A subterranean realm echoing the terrestrial courtyard above. Here, offerings of crystalline water vessels, ceramic figurines, and rare greenstones were placed beside statues of the Feathered Serpent. Stalagmites of ritual fire colored the caverns in an eerie red glow, while priests interpreted the sounds of dripping water as messages from deities. Have you ever descended into a world where every echo feels alive with voice and purpose? This underworld was as vital to Teotihuacan's as the temples above. Terraces lead from the temple into a vast plaza framed by staircases that ascend like the open jaws of a great beast. Standing here, you sense a cosmological axis, the earth below, the temple at center and the sky above. Scholars argue that this alignment mimicked the movement of the sun and Venus, binding the fate of crops and rulers alike to celestial cycles. Can you fathom the knowledge required to align massive monuments with distant stars? To build such precision, Teotihuacan's architects combined trial, observation, and deep reverence for the heavens. Beyond the temple precinct lies a labyrinth of residential compounds. Flat-roofed homes, arranged around central courtyards, housed families who worked the city's obsidian workshops, serving as priests, scribes, and potters. Streets narrow into alleys lined with painted murals, images of jaguars, owls, and feathered deities dancing across plaster walls. Each dwelling tells a story of communal life, shared workspaces for crafting shell jewelry, hearths where maize loaves baked, and silent shrines where everyday prayers to household gods found expression. As afternoon light shifts toward gold, the temple of the Feathered Serpent transforms. Shadows deepen between each carved serpent's coil, and the friezes, painted once in brilliant reds, blues, and greens, gleam ghostly in the waning sun. You sense the temple's heartbeat in the soft rustle of wind through nearby agave plants, carrying the faint scent of resin used in ancient incense. Here, every stone whispers secrets of power, sacrifice, and the eternal dance between earth and sky. By late afternoon, the heat of Teotihuacan softens into a gentler warmth, and the city's true scale becomes unmistakable. From the summit of the Pyramid of the Sun, the Avenue of the Dead unfurls like a dark ribbon stretching toward the horizon, lined with smaller pyramids, platforms, and plazas. Below, the city's heartbeat pulses in the organized grid, a testament to urban planning centuries ahead of its time. Can you imagine gazing down on a city so vast that you feel both insignificant and awestruck? Descending the sun pyramids, broad steps, you pass clusters of rectangular compounds, each a miniature community of adobe walls and subterranean storage pits. Here, families of potters, weavers, and obsidian workers lived and collaborated. The hiss of glinting flakes of volcanic glass fills the air as craftsmen knap obsidian into razor-sharp blades, arrowheads, and sacrificial knives. Sparkles of light dance across the city when the sun catches these tools, reminding you that Teotihuacans harnessed nature's gifts with both practicality and reverence. As dusk approaches, a sacred hush settles over the temple of the Feathered Serpent. Torches erected along its base flicker to life, casting quivering shadows across the carved scales of the feathered serpents. Priests, garbed in headdresses of quetzal feathers and animal pelts, begin a procession that winds down the temples. Terraces, they carry baskets of copal resin, the sticky incense crackling as they pour handfuls onto smoking embers. White plumes of aromatic smoke spiral into the sky, visible from miles away, a signal that a great rite is underway. Gathered in the plaza, tribes from across the Valley of Mexico kneel in concentric circles around temporary altars. Warriors, painted in red ochre and black charcoal bear shields, decorated with serpent motifs. Dancers wearing jaguar skins leap between columns of flame, their movements mimicking the undulating motion of Quetzalcoatl himself. A distant chant swells into a thunderous chorus as one by one offerings, jars of maize beer, trays of roasted turkey, and bundles of aromatic herbs are laid before the altars. Have you ever witnessed a ritual so immersive that you feel transported beyond time and place? At the ceremony's climax, a solitary figure ascends the serpent's back on the temple's highest accessible terrace. Clad in a cloak of iridescent feathers, he raises a polished obsidian blade high above his head. The gathered crowd holds its breath as the blade descends, and the first bead of blood trickles onto a stone basin carved to catch the sacrifice. A collective exhale echoes through the plaza, the sound blending with the soft rush of wind that sweeps across the open space. In that moment, life and death intertwine, affirming the cosmic balance that Teotihuacans held sacred. When the final offerings are complete, The drums fall silent, and the incense smoke drifts toward the moonlit sky. Yet the temple's power lingers, echoing in the hush that follows. You wander to a nearby platform, where ancient mural fragments lie. Vibrant swaths of blue-green pigments still cling to plaster. Scenes depict feathered serpents entwined with eagles, jaguars crouched beside flowing rivers, and priests communing with unseen gods. Can you feel the stories held within those chipped fragments, yearning to be heard once more? That night, campfires flicker in the residential compounds. Families gather around low hearths, sharing bowls of maize stew thickened with squash and chili. Under star-spangled skies, they recount the day's rites and whisper tales of how Teotihuacan rose in a single generation. Quetzalcoatl himself walked these stones, an elder murmurs, voice carried by the desert breeze. Children listen with wide eyes, imagining the feathered serpent slithering through the streets and shaping destinies. Before retreating to your sleeping quarter, AIA, single-room townhouse with a reed mat and clay lamp, you stop at a small shrine tucked beneath a flowering cactus. Here, a carved stone mask of the feathered serpent smiles with carved fangs parted in silent invitation. You place a tiny offering of ground maize and hummingbird feathers within its hollow eyes, whispering thanks for prosperity, protection, and the insight to honor both ancestors and gods. In Teotihuacan, every gesture, no matter how small, resonates across generations. As you lie down under a canopy of woven reeds and painted adobe walls, the rhythmic chant of distant night watch floats through open windows. Each footstep on the stone streets reminds you that even as sleep claims you, the city's pulse never dies. It merely shifts, awaiting the return of dawn's first light and a new round of cosmic dances. Morning light spills over Teotihuacan's grid like a painter's first broad stroke, illuminating the temple of the feathered serpent in all its jagged glory. Sunbeams catch on the mosaic serpent heads, making their fangs gleam like polished alabaster. Workers emerge to maintain the sacred precinct. Artisans mix lime plaster, applying fresh coats to eroded sculptures. Laborers haul baskets of brightly colored pigment, ochre, malachite green, and lapis blue, to renew the temple's rainbow shimmer. Have you ever watched as an ancient monument is reborn with each brushstroke, year after year? Beyond the main terrace, the great ceremonial plaza unfolds, a vast dance floor of limestone pavers, etched with shallow channels to drain away floodwaters. At its center stands a stone altar ringed with engraved bowls once used for libations. Today, tour guides point out how these channels carried wine offerings back into hidden cisterns, symbolically returning blessings to the earth. Imagine priests tilting bowls of fermented cactus juice, letting crimson liquid flow like rivers of communion under the watchful gaze of Quetzalcoatl's mosaic faces. To the east, a series of low platforms once held sculptures of warriors and priests posed in mid-ritual. Archaeologists uncovered charred wooden beams buried beneath these stages, evidence that the plaza hosted fire ceremonies, perhaps to mark calendrical milestones or cosmic alignments. Flames would have leapt skyward, smoke signals dancing across the Valley of Mexico, announced by the distant toll of shell trumpets and the deep resonance of ceremonial drums. Can you hear the echo of those ancient beats in your chest? Descending into the temple's interior chambers, you step softly along flagstone halls where every surface is a canvas. Walls once boasted murals of feathered dancers gyrating around bundled offerings. Corn, cacao, and sacrificial items tied with woven cords. Though time has faded many pigments, you can still trace the rhythmic zigzags of serpent bodies and the circular forms of solar discs. Each image embodies a mythic narrative, Quetzalcoatl's journey between earth and sky, his sacrifice to bring maize to humankind, and his promise to return. Hidden alcoves house relics recovered by modern excavators, obsidian mirrors that priests used for divination, shell-adorned masks worn during blood rites, and ceramic figurines depicting Quetzalcoatl in human form. A single mirror, its surface pitted by age, still captures faint echoes of your reflection, an eerie reminder that the temple's power transcends time. Have you ever peered into an object so ancient it seems to hold another world within? Above, these chambers stretches the Hall of Offerings, a vaulted corridor whose roof once collapsed, revealing 1,000 broken bowls and scattered beads. Each fragment speaks of devotion, spheres of jade crushed by offerings, copper bells that once rang to announce sacred moments, and incense burners shaped like coiled snakes. Modern beams now support the remaining roof, but the spiritual resonance remains intact, as though the hall itself remembers each whispered prayer and each tear shed in hope or desperation. Leaving the chamber, you climb a narrow stair to the temple's secondary terrace. Here, small shrines flank a central altar, each dedicated to facets of Quetzalcoatl's power, creation, wisdom, and renewal. Intricate carvings of maize stalks and gusts of wind are interwoven with serpent coils, visually uniting agriculture and breath, two essentials of life. Can you feel the gentle whisper of those winds as they carried the promise of growth to every corner of this vast city? Stepping onto the terrace, you gaze across the cityscape. Rows of compounds, plazas stretching into the haze, and the distant silhouette of the Pyramid of the Sun, rising like a dormant volcano. Below, street corners bustle with vendors selling replica miniature serpents carved from clay, and dancers practice steps passed down millennia. The temple looms above them, a colossal heartbeat at Teotihuacan's center, reminding every inhabitant that no matter one's role, all exist within a grand cosmic design. As midday heat ripples off sun-baked stones, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent's colors dance in the glare. Artisans in simple tunics stand on scaffolds, reapplying fresh pigment to the serpent friezes. Brilliant greens of malachite, deep reds of cinnabar, and pale blues of ground azurite. Their brushes, made from split agave fibers, glide with practiced grace across rough stone, renewing the temple's ancient vibrancy. Have you ever seen color resurrected from centuries of dust and decay? Each stroke is a prayer to the gods and a testament to human devotion. Within the temple's ritual courtyard, deep grooves carved into limestone mark the path of ceremonial processions. Monoliths bearing carved glyphs stand sentinel, their weathered surfaces hinting at stories lost to time. Today, priests in feathered headdresses reenact age-old rites for visiting dignitaries. They raise conch shells to their lips, unleashing haunting calls that echo against distant mountains. Smoke from copal incense drifts in slow spirals, and the air vibrates with the rhythmic pounding of drums. Can you feel the ritual's resonance in your very bones? At the temple's east flank, a newly excavated tunnel entrance yawns like a moor of stone. Archaeologists guide you inside, where torchlight reveals smooth plaster walls painted in complex patterns. Zigzags, spirals, and stylized feathers converging on a central motif, the cosmos itself. The tunnel floor is layered in sand and clay, worn smooth by centuries of pilgrim feet. In its depths stand stacks of ceramic vessels, jade-green bowls once filled with precious maize beer, cups for blood offerings, and urns sealed with resin. Imagine the countless hands that place those pots here, each one an offering of hope or desperation. Emerging again into brilliant sunlight, your senses reel from the tunnel's cool hush. You cross into the citadel area, an elevated compound, thought to have housed the city's elite and its most sacred rites. Here, high walls bear remnants of murals depicting anthropomorphic deities with serpent headdresses, their arms extended in blessing. Floors of polished basalt reveal geometric inlays, triangles and lozenges forming patterns that echo the temple's friezes. Archaeologists believe these courts hosted elite gatherings where strategy, ritual, and politics intertwined. Have you ever pondered the weight of decisions made in shadows just beyond these walls? At the citadel's center, a massive platform supports the base of the Feathered Serpent pyramid. its scale rising again in smaller, yet no less intricate tiers. Each tier features open niches that once cradled painted statues and offerings. Today, slender agave plants sprout from crevices between stones, their silvery leaves contrasting sharply with the weathered rock. A sudden breeze carries the distant clatter of obsidian workshops, reminding you that life in Teotihuacan thrived beside its sanctuaries. Can you imagine living where daily toil and divine ritual shared the same streets? As the afternoon deepens, you join a small group descending into a recently mapped series of side chambers beneath the citadel. The passage narrows until you slide through on your stomach, emerging into a cave-like grotto with a low ceiling. Here, water seeps through limestone cracks, pooling in shallow depressions. Geologists speculate this underground water source was considered sacred, a living vein linking the city to the gods. Close by, rough-hewn steps carved into bedrock lead upward. Ritual climbers once ascended these stairs to reach surface altars, connecting underworld with sky in a single spiritual journey. Have you ever been both beneath and above the earth in a single breath? Climbing back into daylight, the temple's silhouette veiled in heat haze, you pause to reflect on its sheer audacity. Built without metal tools or draft animals, this edifice demanded human strength channeled through belief. Each block, each layer, each painted motif testifies to a vision where artistry and devotion forged society itself. Standing before the Feathered Serpent's watchful gaze, you sense that Teotihuacan was more than a city. It was an offering, a grand statement of humanity's reach toward the divine. Centuries passed after the last ceremonial smoke curled into Teotihuacan's sky, and life at the temple of the Feathered Serpent faded into myth. By the 7th century, the city lay silent, its great avenues reclaimed by wind-blown dust and stray mesquite. What could topple a civilization that once marshaled thousands in ritual and tribute? Scholars debate the reasons: climate shifts that starved harvests, social upheaval sparked by resource scarcity, or internal strife fracturing political unity. Whatever the cause, the grand plazas and towering pyramids were abandoned, left to slump in the sun until nature began to whisper over stone. For centuries, only locals trekking to mountain pastures knew of Teotihuacan's buried grandeur. Then, in the 19th century, explorers and antiquarians arrived, drawn by fractured murals peeking through collapsed walls. Among them was Adrian Godelano, whose crude sketches in 1875 captured the temple's outline before more substantial excavations began. Laborers unearthed obsidian sacrificial blades, ceramic urns sealed with resin, and shards of polychrome friezes so vivid they seemed painted yesterday. Can you imagine unearthing a mosaic of feathered serpents whose colors time had almost forgotten? Modern archaeology transformed those initial digs into systematic explorations. In the 1960s, scholars used ground-penetrating radar to map hidden chambers beneath the pyramid's base, revealing networks of tunnels echoing human footfalls from 2 millennia prior. Later, LiDAR surveys, laser pulses beamed from low-flying aircraft, pierced forest canopy and modern rooftops, exposing the city's entire urban grid in astonishing detail. These digital scans revealed that Teotihuacan sprawled over nearly 20 square kilometers, with suburbs, workshops, and ceremonial sites far beyond what early excavators imagined. Have you ever seen a lost world reappear line by line through invisible beams of light? In specialized conservation labs, technologists apply tiny brushes to stabilize pigment flecks still clinging to carved serpent heads. Under microscopes, conservators examine minute traces of organic binders, resins from copal incense and natural gums, used to fix paint to stone. At the same time, bioarchaeologists analyze sacrificial remains, identifying diets rich in maize, beans, and even shark teeth, brought by long-distance trade. Each bone fragment, each trace element adds nuance to the story. Teotihuacans were farmers and artisans, traders and priests, united in rituals that bound community and cosmos. Artifacts recovered beneath the temple's floors are among the most haunting. Ceramic were-jaguar figurines, hybrid creatures part human, part feline, exude both menace and grace, suggesting a mythology where animal and spirit merged. Jade earspools carved with quetzal feathers reveal elite adornment, while polished obsidian mirrors, once used in prophecy, capture our reflections across centuries. Could anything connect us more intimately to these vanished worshippers than seeing ourselves mirrored in their sacred tools? Nearby, the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City houses hundreds of these finds. There, you can stand before the original mosaic serpent head, its fanged jaw frozen in fierce invitation. Beneath museum lights, the emerald stones glimmer, and you sense the sculptor's ancient hand, guided by devotion to a deity who bridged earth and sky. Interactive exhibits allow you to trace the city's layout on touchscreens, zooming from plaza to pyramid with a swipe of your finger. Isn't it remarkable how technology now brings these silent ruins back to life in our hands? The temple of the Feathered Serpent's legacy echoes in Mesoamerica's later cultures. The Aztecs revered the site as a place where men became gods, incorporating its imagery into their own Templo Maya. Francisco Moctezuma himself led pilgrimages to Teotihuacan's ruins, seeking ancestral sanction for his empire. Even after the Spanish conquest, indigenous storytellers preserved legends of feathered serpents and subterranean chambers, weaving new narratives that blended Catholic saints with Quetzalcoatl's old power. Today, Teotihuacan's pyramid of the Feathered Serpent continues to host ceremonies. Modern-day pilgrims offer candles and incense, honoring the ancient deity in a blend of pre-Hispanic ritual and Catholic devotion. Tour guides recount each statue, each frieze, as though speaking to an audience still tuned to the temple's original frequency. At dawn, you might glimpse a Nawa elder placing copal incense before a reconstructed serpent mask, his prayers carried on a breeze that seems to know every secret held in Teotihuacan stones. Can you feel the resonance of faith that transcends centuries, binding past to present? As sunset gilds the temple steps, a final beam of light catches the crenellated edges of ancient stone. The pyramids glow like embers in a dying fire, yet their aura remains immortal. In those fading rays, you understand that Teotihuacan was never just a city of bricks and mortar. It was a living tapestry of human aspiration, celestial alignment, and the ceaseless quest for harmony between earth, sky, and soul. In the early light of dawn, Teotihuacan's ruins stand silent, yet a new chorus stirs as tour groups and pilgrims converge on the temple of the Feathered Serpent. Guides weave through labyrinthine crowds, their voices rising above the murmur with stories of ancient dynasties and celestial alignments. They pause at each mosaic mask, tracing faded pigments with outstretched fingers, and explain how emerald green, serpent heads once glittered under tropical sun. Have you ever watched history come alive in the eyes of travelers discovering a world they only knew from books? International archaeologists now collaborate with local communities to safeguard Teotihuacan's fragile legacy. Conservation teams clad in wide-brimmed hats and gloves meticulously remove invasive plants whose roots crack the temple's foundations. Drones hum overhead, capturing aerial photographs that feed into digital reconstructions. Virtual Teotihuacans, where tourists can wander ancient plazas without risking physical damage. Can you imagine exploring a perfect, pixelated Teotihuacan as it appeared 2 millennia ago, all from a headset? Yet, even as technology offers new insights, it cannot replace the visceral sensation of standing before the living rock of Quetzalcoatl. Each year, UNESCO's World Heritage Committee reviews the site's condition, ensuring that protective measures balance preservation with public access. Stout barriers now guard the pyramid's steep staircases, and walkways channel foot traffic away from vulnerable murals. Still, visitors long to touch the stones smoothed by centuries of wind and ritual. In small crowds, they press their palms to cold basalt, closing their eyes to imagine the pulse of ancient hearts beneath those same surfaces. What does it feel like to connect skin to stone whose story spans lifetimes? Nearby, artisans from the town of San Juan Teotihuacan set up stalls selling handcrafted replicas of feathered serpent artifacts. Bright necklaces of turquoise and bone, woven tapestries depicting winged serpents, and obsidian dice etched with glyphs offer a tangible link to the past. Children wide-eyed with wonder clutch miniature clay serpents, while elders explain how each motif carries layers of meaning: fertility, renewal, protection. Have you ever held a tiny piece of history so perfectly reproduced that it vibrates with ancestral energy? As midday heat builds, a contingent of Nawa descendants gathers at the temple's base to perform traditional ceremonies. Drum beats thrum in the plaza, their heavy pulse echoing the heartbeat of the earth. Priests dressed in white linen and embroidered huipils chant invocations to Quetzalcoatl, raising feathered staffs high above their heads. Smoke from copal incense spirals into the sky alongside the rising plumes of construction dust, a reminder that past and present intertwine here in complex harmony. Can you sense how faith carried forward across centuries binds community, landscape, and spirit? Behind the scenes, researchers pore over shards of ceramic and bone fragments unearthed in recent digs. Bioarchaeologists sequence ancient DNA from burial remains found beneath the temple's plinth, revealing familial connections that spanned Mesoamerica. Isotope analyses of tooth enamel trace childhood migrations, showing that Teotihuacan was a melting pot of cultures, Mixtec, Zapotec, Maya, drawn by its religious magnetism. How extraordinary that the bones of long-dead worshippers can still speak of journeys taken and identities forged. Each new data point stitches together a richer tapestry of human experience. By afternoon, the sun casts long shadows across the feathered serpent's tears, and the temple begins to glow with an amber halo. Pilgrims climb carefully to the upper terraces, pausing to gaze over the Avenue of the Dead as it stretches toward distant mountains. From this vantage, the city's ordered grid feels almost infinite, a monument to collective will and cosmic order. Do you feel, in that moment, both infinitesimal and part of something vast beyond understanding? It is this paradox of individual smallness against a backdrop of human achievement that makes Teotihuacan so profoundly moving. As golden hour fades into dusky violet, light technicians set up soft lamps to illuminate the serpent masks for an evening sound and light show. Narrators describe the myths behind each carving, and robotic spotlights trace the friezes in synchronized patterns, reenacting ancient rituals in technicolor splendor. The spectacle draws crowds who gasp at the interplay of modern spectacle and millennia-old art. Can you reconcile the ancient devotion that built this temple with the dazzling technology used to showcase it today? The answer lies in humanity's enduring desire to connect, across time, across cultures, across the veil between earth and sky. Finally, under a moonlit sky, the site falls quiet once more. Guards patrol the perimeter, their torches the soul. Flicker of fire against stone. Crickets chirp in the weedy expanses beyond the ruins, and the wind carries whispers of feathered serpents long silent. In these moments, the temple of the feathered serpent seems to pulse with residual energy. The afterglow of countless offerings, prayers and footsteps, it stands not merely as a relic, but as a living testament to human creativity, faith, and the eternal dance between mortality and the divine. As night deepens over Teotihuacan, the temple of the feathered serpent stands silhouetted against a tapestry of stars. The hush of sleepers contrasts sharply with the day's ceremonies, yet an undercurrent of reverence lingers in the still air. Have you ever felt that silence itself can be a form of ritual? Here, every pause seems pregnant with the echoes of ancient chants and the imprint of vanished feet. At the base of the pyramid, moonlight glints off shards of obsidian, still embedded in sacrificial basins. A lone caretaker kneels, cleaning the stone with soft brushes, mindful that each grain of dust removed honors those who built this monument with sweat and sacrifice. Above, a lizard scuttles across carved serpent coils, its movements almost reverent, as if paying its own homage to Quetzalcoatl's eternal watch. In the distance, the glow of Mexico City's lights bleeds into the horizon, a reminder of modern life encroaching on this sacred landscape. Yet the temple resists assimilation. Its ancient stones absorb urban glare and reflect a deeper radiance born of millennia-old devotion. Isn't it astonishing how a single monument can bridge the gulf between past and present, wilderness and city? Before you leave, you follow a narrow pathway leading to a quiet alcove on the pyramid's eastern side. Here, a small plaque commemorates the day in 1988, when UNESCO declared Teotihuacan a World Heritage Site. You read the inscription, "For outstanding universal value and as a masterpiece of human creative genius." You trace the letters with your fingertips, feeling gratitude for generations of scholars, locals, and caretakers who have fought to preserve this legacy. Turning back, you pause at the topmost accessible terrace, the final vantage point before barriers prevent further ascent. From here, the city grid unfurls beneath you, punctuated by tiny lights of remote farmhouses and winding dirt tracks. The Temple of the Moon and Pyramid of the Sun stand silent as sentinels in the night. Do you feel the hush of history settling around you, as if the city itself draws a deep breath? With the first whisper of dawn on the horizon, you retrace your steps down the serpent staircase, each footfall a prayer of thanks. At the plaza's edge, you offer a last libation, a small cup of pulque, its fermented sweetness a nod to the maize rituals of old. You pour the amber liquid onto the flagstones, watching it seep into ancient grooves. In that simple act, you join a lineage of worshippers extending back centuries. As you step outside the archaeological zone, the hum of early morning traffic greets you. Vendors begin arranging their stalls, calling out to shoppers in a cadence that feels both familiar and distant. The scent of freshly roasted coffee mingles with the tang of copal incense, creating a sensory bridge between worlds. Isn't it remarkable how daily life flows onward, even as the past remains etched in stone? Walking away, you cast one final glance over your shoulder at the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Its dark silhouette against the pale sky feels like a benediction. In every carved coil, every painted mosaic, every hidden tunnel, you glimpse humanity's ceaseless yearning to understand the cosmos and secure its favor. Teotihuacan endures not simply as ruins, but as living memory, an invitation to each of us to tread its stones, feel its rhythms, and add our own brief pulse to its infinite story. Long before written language gave voice to our thoughts, the primal pulse of human existence resonated through percussion. Imagine a time more than 30,000 years ago, when our ancestors gathered around flickering fires and raised hollow shells, animal skulls, or hollowed logs to their lips and hands. With each tap and scrape, they echoed the thunder of distant storms and the steady heartbeat of the earth itself. Have you ever wondered how the first drumbeat might have sounded? Wild, raw, and inseparable from the world's ancient rhythms. In this dawn of percussive expression, every strike carried purpose. A hollowed mammoth tusk, once emptied of marrow, became a vessel for communication and ritual. Hunters signaled success or summoned their kin. Shamans invoked spirits with chants punctuated by hollow thuds. On open plains, villagers gathered to chase away darkness and misfortune, believing that no malevolent entity could resist the united clamor of beating sticks. The simplest drum, often a hollow log split lengthwise, served as a guardian, its resonance warding off evil while binding the group together in shared sound. Sunrise ceremonies began with the rhythmic scrape of stones against wooden resonators. The pace was deliberate, mirroring the sun's slow climb above the horizon. As daylight strengthened, the tempo quickened, mimicking life's burgeoning energy. Can you feel the transition from dawn's hush to midday's fervor, captured in a single pattern of beats? These early rituals forged an unbreakable link between humanity and nature, each beat a vow that life, like the drum, would persist through cycles of light and darkness. Across continents, similar practices took root. In the steamy humidity of early river valleys, reed tubes bound with animal hide transformed into membranophones, their taut skins vibrating under eager fingers. In frigid tundras, hunter-gatherer bands used seal skins stretched over driftwood frames, channeling the wind's howls into their percussive prayers. Whether in Africa's savanna or Siberia's taiga, the drum was never merely an instrument. It was a living extension of collective breath, a tool to mark time, to heal, and to celebrate the mysteries of existence. Ritual drumming also bridged the gap between the physical and spiritual worlds. Initiation ceremonies for young hunters featured trance-inducing rhythms, coaxing participants into altered states where animal guides appeared in visions. Imagine the shaman's trance, head swaying in time with resonant thumps as unseen forces whispered their secrets through ancient patterns. The drumbeat acted like a heartbeat of the cosmos, syncing human souls to a universal rhythm that transcended flesh and bone. Within tribal councils, drumming settled disputes and structured debate. A slow, authoritative pulse signaled the start of deliberations. Faster, more urgent patterns demanded attention when tempers flared. Even without words, the drum's language conveyed hierarchy, pause, and conclusion. An early form of governance conducted through collective rhythm. Have you ever considered that the political heartbeat of entire communities might once have been directed by the cadence of a wooden frame? As these primordial practices spread, they adapted to each culture's environment and beliefs. Coastal, fishermen used clamshells and driftwood to craft percussive devices that mimicked the ebb and flow of tides. Mountain tribes hollowed out tree stumps to produce booming bass tones that echoed through valleys, summoning thunderstorms or calling distant kin. In dense forests, percussionists sculpted gourds into vessels, their skins stretched so tightly that every nuance of hand pressure yielded a spectrum of tonal possibilities. The drum was a storyteller, its timbre shifting to convey joy, warning, lament, or triumph. Yet despite this diversity, one truth remained constant. Drumming was communal. Even solitary players performed for an unseen audience, their ancestors, the spirits of the land, and the wider tribe. Each beat carved space for connection, solidarity, and shared memory. Around flickering flames, young and old alike participated in call and response patterns, ensuring that no heartbeat echoed alone. Can you sense the power of a village synchronized in sound? Each member's life force amplified through 1,000 resonant pulses. By the time settled agriculture transformed nomadic bands into permanent villages, drumming had already cemented its role as cultural cornerstone. Ceremonies marking planting and harvest, birth and death, were all orchestrated by drums. They signaled everything from the start of communal feasts to the solemnity of funerary rites. In many societies, drummers were among the most revered figures, the keepers of history, the guides of ritual, the mediators between worlds. Their skill lay not just in technique, but in intuition, knowing precisely when to intensify the beat and when to retreat into the hush between strikes. As this chapter of human history closed, drumming stood poised for transformation. The next stage would carry it from open-air ritual to grand processions on battlefields and into the ornate courts of kings. But the primal echoes of those first firelit gatherings remain etched in every subsequent evolution, an eternal reminder that before melody and harmony, the drum's heartbeat was the foundation of all music. In our next chunk, we will explore how drumming marched alongside armies and echoed within royal halls, forging new rhythms of power and pageantry. When armies marched to war, drumming became the heartbeat that united soldiers and steeled their spirits. In ancient Egypt, long before the pyramids gleamed, corps of drummers accompanied pharaohs' chariots. Their skins struck in rhythmic unison to coordinate troop movements across desert plains. The deep thud of bass drums echoed like distant thunder, signaling advance or retreat in a language understood without words. Have you ever felt the shiver of anticipation when a drum roll precedes the clash of arms? In the chaos of battle, The drum's steady cadence was more reliable than any messenger, guiding warriors like a living compass. Across the Mediterranean, Roman legions adopted similar tactics. Their tubae and tympana, metal and leather drums, announced dawn's first advance and sounded the retreat at dusk. During sieges, drummers on city walls beat taunts at beleaguered foes and rallied defenders when morale wavered. From the Colosseum's sands to distant frontiers beyond Hadrian's Wall, the drum was omnipresent, a tool of war that could crown an emperor or condemn a city to ruin. Meanwhile, in Asia's great empires, drums held ceremonial and military power. In imperial China, giant bronze drums, some weighing over a ton, stood before palaces, their deep tones believed to awaken ancestral spirits. Court musicians pounded them during state ceremonies, marking anniversaries and proclamations. On battlefields, smaller drums signaled troop formations and flare-ups of skirmishes. Can you imagine the reverberation of such massive drums shaking the earth beneath your feet? Each strike was an announcement to heaven and earth that an empire's will was at work. In West Africa, Yoruba and Fon kingdoms wove drum languages into both governance and worship. Talking drums, hourglass-shaped and tensioned with chords, could mimic the tonal patterns of local languages, transmitting messages across villages at remarkable speed. A skilled drummer could speak warnings of impending raids or summon distant kin for urgent counsels. At royal courts, dueling drum performances showcased not just artistry, but political acumen. Each rhythm conveyed respect, defiance, or allegiance. Have you ever heard drums converse in a language that transcends sound? Here, drumming was the lifeblood of communication, bridging geography and culture. Even in medieval Europe, drums found their place beyond the battlefield. In the courts of Charlemagne, minstrels played small frame drums alongside lutes and harps, entertaining nobility with exotic rhythms imported from Moorish Spain. Monasteries used percussion to signal the hours of prayer, wooden clappers marking vespers and matins in echoing cloisters. By the late Middle Ages, civic processions paraded through city streets with drummers leading guilds and confraternities, celebrating feast days and civic pride. Imagine the pageantry of a medieval festival, where every footfall was heralded by the drum's clarion call. Through these diverse contexts, the drum's function evolved, but its core remained: to unite, to communicate, and to transform energy into collective experience. Whether rallying the mighty legions of Rome, coordinating tribal communities, or elevating spiritual rites, drumming stitched together the fabric of societies. The transition from ritual to martial and ceremonial use laid the groundwork for drumming's next metamorphosis into the unified, self-contained drum kits of modern music. But before that leap, percussion's global journey remains a testament to humanity's ingenuity in harnessing rhythm to shape history. In the next chunk, we'll explore how drumming migrated from battlefields and courts into the folk traditions that echoed through villages and rural landscapes worldwide. As empires and armies wielded drums for power, villagers and artisans elsewhere transformed percussion into the beating heart of daily life and celebration. In the shadowed forests of West Africa, the djembe rose from hollowed logs bound in goatskin, its goblet shape designed to amplify both thunderous bass tones and crisp, snapping slaps. Gathered around communal fires, dancers leaped into the firelight as djembefolas, master drummers, wove polyrhythms so intricate that limbs and feet moved in perfect synchronicity. Have you ever felt your own pulse quicken as dozens of hands call out in counterpoint? Here, rhythm was both roadmap and ritual, guiding harvest festivals and life cycle ceremonies with equal fervor. Journey eastward to Ireland's mist-shrouded hills, and you'll encounter the bodhran, a shallow frame drum with a goatskin face and a single crossbar inside for control. Played with a slender stick called a tipper, its low heartbeat underpinned reels and jigs in smoky pubs and village halls. The musician's arm pressed against the back of the drum, altering pitch with subtle pressure. Can you imagine coaxing song from silence with a single stick and a canvas of skin? In Ireland, The bodhran fused history and dance, its round frame echoing the cycle of seasons and the wheel of time. Across the Mediterranean's azure waters, the darbuka, pear-shaped and crafted from clay, wood, or metal, lent its crystalline tones to whispered night melodies. Fingers deftly tapped intricate patterns on its thin head, sounding like raindrops on desert tents. In bustling souks, darbuka virtuosos challenged one another in friendly duels, their fingers blurring in flashes of motion. Have you ever watched a single hand summon entire waves of sound? To listeners, each flourish was a story of longing, love, or ancient lore, passed from parent to child under starry skies. In the Caribbean's sultry air, the conga drum transformed Afro-Cuban rhythms into a vibrant tapestry of beat and dance. Standing tall upon hardware, congas, barrel-shaped and tunable, responded to palms and fingertips with deep, resonant slaps and rolling open tones. Carnival parades thrummed with conga lines stretching for blocks, bodies swaying in unison as rhythms intertwined with steel pan and horn. Can you feel the warmth of sun and salt air in every thunderous stroke? Here, the conga embodied the fusion of African heritage and Caribbean joy. Travel to the Indian subcontinent, and you'll find tabla masters seated cross-legged on rugs, each hand patting two separate drums, the smaller Dayan and larger Bayan, in a language of bowls, syllables that map complex talas, rhythmic cycles. Fingers and palms danced across goatskin membranes, producing shimmering tonic strokes and resonant bass tones. Have you ever followed a rhythm so subtle that its beauty lay in the spaces between beats? In the Gharanas, schools of Hindustani music, tabla players were respected as scholars, custodians of centuries-old rhythmic treatises handed down through oral tradition. Across Southeast Asia, pairs of barrel drums, kendang in Indonesia, thon in Thailand, led gamelan ensembles in hypnotic interlocking patterns. Their low, pulsing heartbeat anchored layers of metallophones, gongs, and xylophones, creating soundscapes that felt both meditative and majestic. Dancers moved in slow, deliberate gestures to these rhythms, enacting legends of gods and heroes. In temple courtyards, can you sense the ancient spirituality vibrating in each measured beat? These drums bridged music and movement, grounding celestial myths in human form. In South America's Andean valleys, Quechua communities carved drums from hollowed tree trunks and otter skins, using them in rituals that blended Inca heritage with Catholic feast days. Drummers led processions through misty mountain passes, their rhythms echoing against terraced fields. The sound carried ancestral prayers upward, weaving sky, earth, and community into one continuous offering. Have you ever heard a mountain resonate with drums, as if the peaks themselves were singing? Finally, even the simplest handheld frame. Drum appears in myriad cultures, from the tambourine of Europe to the rik of North Africa, each iteration reflecting local aesthetics and rituals. With a shake, a tap, or a swirl, these small drums enliven weddings, healing ceremonies, and communal gatherings, reminding us that percussion belongs not to any one people, but to all humankind. Isn't it remarkable that across thousands of miles and countless languages, the universal language of rhythm binds us together? These folk traditions, djembe grooves, bodhran pulses, darbuka echoes, conga waves, tabla subtleties, demonstrate percussion's unparalleled adaptability. From sacred rites to joyous dances, drums have always mirrored the soul of a people. Yet this global tapestry of sound also laid the groundwork for the next evolution, the emergence of the unified drum kit, ready to power the modern musical revolutions of jazz, rock, and beyond. In our next chunk, we'll dive into how multiple drums and cymbals coalesced into the drum set and propelled new genres with explosive energy. As the 19th century dawned, changes in music and technology heralded drumming's next grand transformation. In concert halls and theatres across Europe and North America, percussion sections swelled with individual instruments, bass drums, snare drums, cymbals, and more, each played by its own musician. Yet logistical challenges and rising demand for compact ensembles sparked innovation. Enter the modern drum kit. A single drummer, seated, could now command multiple percussion voices with foot pedals, sticks, and brushes. Have you ever marveled at how ingenuity can condense an entire orchestra of rhythms into one set of drums? Early drum kits emerged around 1890, equipped with bass drum pedals pioneered by drummers like William F. Ludwig in Chicago. This invention freed the drummer's hands to play snare and tom-toms, creating rhythms both steady and syncopated. By the roaring 1920s, jazz ensembles in New Orleans and Chicago showcased kits with small, tacked-down bass drums, shallow toms, and china cymbals. Drummers like Baby Dodds and Zutty Singleton laid down swinging beats that coaxed dancing feet onto ballroom floors. Can you sense the thrill of those first syncopated rolls, urging couples into lively Charleston steps? Cymbal use also evolved rapidly. What began as simple crash and ride cymbals mounted on stands became hi-hats, two small cymbals on a foot-operated stand, around 1926. The sock cymbal allowed drummers to maintain a crisp, ticking pulse with their feet, freeing their hands for intricate snare patterns. This innovation solidified the drum kit as the engine of rhythm, capable of driving big bands and small combos alike. Imagine the coordination required to keep a steady hi-hat footwork while your hands dance across drums and cymbals. Truly a symphony of limbs. The swing era of the 1930s and 40s cemented the drum kit's central role in popular music. Drummers like Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich became household names, celebrated for their showmanship as much as their rhythmic mastery. Krupa's solo in Sing 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 1937 transformed the drum solo into a focal point, blending booming tom-toms and crashing cymbals in exhilarating crescendos. Have you ever felt your heart pound in sync with a drum break so electrifying it feels like pure adrenaline? By mid-century, as bebop and modern jazz emerged, drumming techniques grew ever more nuanced. Elvin Jones and Max Roach expanded rhythmic vocabulary with polyrhythms and melodic tom-tom runs. Drum kits swelled to include multiple toms, rack toms, floor toms, and an array of cymbal sizes. Brushes offered softer textures for ballads, while mallets coaxed warm tones from toms during orchestral jazz concerts. Can you hear the subtle intimacy of brushwork, contrasting with the explosive power of a full drum break? The rock and roll revolution of the 1950s and 60s put the drum kit at the heart of youth culture. Ringo Starr's steady backbeat on the Beatles' records, Keith Moon's wild fills with The Who, and John Bonham's thunderous triplets on Led Zeppelin's tracks demonstrated drumming's capacity to define a band's sound. Drum kits grew, larger still. Triple bass drums, multiple tom arrays, exotic percussion attachments like cowbells and tambourines, reflecting the era's appetite for bigger, bolder rhythms. Have you ever felt the collective roar of a stadium crowd galvanized by a drummer's explosive fill? In parallel, studio technology revolutionized drumming. The advent of multi-track recording in the 1960s allowed drum sounds to be isolated, processed, and layered. Engineers experimented with close miking, room miking, and reverb to sculpt drum tones, creating the lush ambient sounds of Phil Spector's Wall of Sound or the tight punch of Motown's hits. Isn't it remarkable how a microphone placement can transform the raw energy of a drum into a sonic icon? By the 1970s and 80s, jazz fusion and progressive rock drummers like Billy Cobham and Neil Peart pushed the boundaries further. Complex, time signatures, electronic triggers, and extended drum kits with double kick pedals and electronic pads redefined what a drummer could achieve. Can you imagine mastering a kit outfitted with dozens of drums and cymbals, each demanding its own technique? Electronic drums, Roland's TR-808 and Simmons pads, introduced entirely new timbres, bridging acoustic power with synthesized versatility. Today's kit drummers draw on this legacy, blending traditional setups with electronic pads, sample triggers, and digital interfaces. Hybrid kits allow seamless switching between natural skin tones and electronic samples, while MIDI integration enables drummers to compose and perform with unprecedented precision. Yet, despite these high-tech enhancements, the core remains a simple principle: A drummer's limbs, mind, and heart collaborating to shape rhythm and emotion. Isn't it profound that, at its essence, drumming still comes down to the fundamental act of striking a surface in time? In our next chunk, we'll delve deeper into electronic drumming's impact on pop, hip-hop, and EDM, how machines and computers expanded rhythm's frontier and blurred the lines between human touch and digital innovation. While the acoustic drum kits soared in popularity, parallel innovations in electronic percussion began reshaping the sonic landscape. In the late 1960s, pioneering engineers experimented with drum machines, primitive at first, but full of promise. The Maestro Rhythm King of 1967 offered preset patterns for rock, jazz, and Latin styles, allowing solo performers to accompany themselves without a full band. Have you ever tapped your foot to a machine's beat and sensed the future of music clicking into place? By the 1980s, Roland's TR-808 drum machine revolutionized popular music. Its distinctive booming bass drum and crisp handclap sounds defined hip-hop's early era, while its snappy snare and cowbell tones colored countless pop hits. Producers like LL Cool J and Marvin Gaye programmed rhythms that felt both mechanical and deeply human, layering spoken-word vocals over pulsating electronic grooves. Isn't it fascinating how a synthetic pulse can convey such emotional depth? Simultaneously, electronic drum pads, Simmons hexagonal pads with their futuristic glow, found favor among rock and pop drummers. Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins incorporated these pads into their kits, blending acoustic hits with electronic tones triggered on contact. The result, hybrid soundscapes that could shift instantly from organic warmth to synthetic sheen. Can you recall the thrill of a song where the drums sounded simultaneously familiar and alien? The dawn of digital audio workstations, DAWs, in the 1990s further blurred lines between live drumming and programmed rhythms. Software like Pro Tools and Cubase enabled producers to sequence drums with grid-like precision, quantizing beats to perfect timing or intentionally nudging them off-grid for a human feel. Sample libraries offered recorded hits from legendary drummers, allowing anyone to craft tracks dripping with iconic grooves. Have you ever marveled at how a 2-second sample loop can anchor an entire song? In underground clubs, electronic rave, culture embraced drum machines and sequencers wholeheartedly. Patterns spawned by the TR-909 and TR-707 drove the hypnotic tempos of acid house, techno, and trance. DJs mixed breakbeats and bass-heavy loops, igniting dance floors where bodies moved as one to relentless pulses. Can you imagine the collective euphoria of thousands synchronized to a machine's precise rhythm? Today, live drummers often integrate electronic triggers into their acoustic kits. A tap on a pad can summon a sample of thunder, a vocal hit, or any recorded sound, adding creative flair beyond traditional drum tones. This flexibility empowers drummers to craft unique textures, transitioning seamlessly from raw acoustic power to orchestrated electronic effects. Isn't it remarkable how the ancient act of striking a skin now commands a symphony of digital possibilities? As technology advances, drumming stands at the forefront of innovation. From analog pulse to digital precision, the journey exemplifies humanity's drive to evolve tools of expression while honoring rhythmic roots. In our next chunk, we will explore drumming's role in contemporary world fusion, where traditional and modern beats collide to create entirely new genres. In the new millennium, drummers and producers alike have pushed the boundaries of percussion further through hybrid and world fusion projects. Consider the electrifying collaborations where traditional djembe rhythms intertwine with jazz swing, or Middle Eastern darbuka patterns layer atop electronic house beats. Musicians like Tony Allen, known for pioneering Afrobeat, fused Nigerian, traditional drumming with funk and jazz, catalyzing a global appreciation for cross-cultural rhythm. Have you ever felt your body respond to a beat that transcends geographic borders, speaking a language of unity? In South Asia, tabla maestros such as Zakir Hussain embraced global fusion, recording with jazz ensembles and pop icons, his lightning fast. Fingerwork on the Dayan and Bayan paired with drum kits and synthesizers in concert halls from London to Los Angeles. These performances revealed how ancient talas could breathe new life when juxtaposed with modern grooves. Can you imagine the exhilaration of witnessing talas ripple through a jazz improvisation? Electronic dance music, EDM producers, have also delved into world percussion, sampling and reinterpreting drums from every continent. Tracks built around remixed conga breaks, sampled taiko drums from Japan, or pulsating taiko-like electronic loops showcase how percussion remains central to dance culture. DJ and producer Carl Cox, for example, has woven African Shona drum samples into techno sets, bringing ancestral rhythms into neon-lit warehouses. Isn't it amazing how a sampled drum loop can bridge centuries and dance floors across oceans? Contemporary drumming collectives, such as the Toronto-based Drum Youth Ensemble, emphasize community and education, teaching children to craft drums from recycled materials and learn global patterns. Their performances blend West African djembe, Brazilian, samba, and indigenous North American powwow drumming, demonstrating percussion's unifying power. Have you ever seen a group of strangers become a cohesive unit through a shared rhythm? Meanwhile, experimental artists meld acoustic and electronic percussion into immersive installations. Sound sculptor Christine Song Kim uses contact microphones on traditional instruments, processing their vibrations in real time to sculpt ambient environments. Composer and percussionist Evelyn Glennie performs barefoot to feel subtle vibrations, demonstrating drums' innate tactile dialogue with the body. Can you sense how percussion can transcend sound, becoming a physical and sensory experience? In popular music, drummers like Questlove have reshaped the role of the kit as curator and historian, digging deep into groove archives to resurrect forgotten rhythms. On albums like The Roots Things Fall Apart, Questlove's drums pay homage to vintage breakbeats while forging fresh syncopations. His approach illustrates how drumming can be both a nod to lineage and a push toward new horizons. Have you ever heard a groove that felt both nostalgic and revolutionary? Drumming workshops and festivals worldwide, such as Drum Talk in the Netherlands or Japan's Taiko Festival, gather enthusiasts and masters to share techniques, histories, and innovations. Participants dive into workshops on tabla bowls, West African polyrhythms, and electronic beatmaking, experiencing drumming as a communal exchange of tradition and technology. Isn't it compelling that a single art form can foster global dialogue and creative evolution? As we look toward the future, drumming continues to evolve with artificial intelligence and machine learning. AI-driven systems can generate novel rhythm patterns influenced by vast libraries of traditional beats, offering composers endless inspiration. Yet, at its core, drumming remains an intimate conversation between human impulse and percussion surface. After 30,000 years of beating skins and shells, isn't it profound that the simplest act of rhythm continues to unite us across time and culture? Drumming's role as a communal cornerstone has never been more visible than in the vibrant festivals and educational initiatives cropping up around the world. Each year, thousands of enthusiasts flock to events like the Global Drumfest in Rotterdam or the Taiko Matsuri in Japan, where percussionists from every culture share their craft. There, a student fresh from a Brazilian samba workshop might step into a circle of West African djembefolas to learn heart-pounding polyrhythms, then join a Balkan tapan ensemble for thunderous double-headed drum grooves. Have you ever witnessed a gathering where drummers speak dozens of tongues and yet all understand each other perfectly through beat alone? In North America, programs like the Rhythm for Healing initiative use drumming circles to support veterans and trauma survivors. Led by trained facilitators, participants play simple hand drums and frame drums in guided sessions, using steady, grounding rhythms to reduce stress and build resilience. Neuroscientists studying these circles report that synchronized drumming increases oxytocin levels and fosters a sense of belonging, proof that rhythm can literally rewire the brain for empathy. Isn't it amazing that a few shared beats can knit hearts together where words may fail? Meanwhile, digital platforms have democratized drumming education. Apps like Drum Guru and Taiko Drum TV offer interactive tutorials on Kajong grooves, tabla bowls, and electronic pad techniques, complete with slowed-down video, waveform analysis, and AI-driven feedback. Aspiring drummers can record loops on a smartphone, upload them, and receive critiques from masters across continents. Can you imagine honing an Irish bodhran roll or an Afro-Cuban clave pattern with guidance from an expert halfway around the world? Technology has amplified drum pedagogy, making the art form more accessible than ever. Street performances and urban interventions also showcase drumming's power to transform public spaces. From impromptu bus stop drum circles in Melbourne to eco-friendly installations in Copenhagen's Tivoli Gardens, percussionists use recycled materials, oil drums, plastic barrels, scrap metal, to craft instruments that resound across cityscapes. These pop-up ensembles invite passers-by to pick up sticks and join in, breaking down barriers between performer and spectator. Have you ever stopped in your tracks because a random rhythm called you to dance? In those moments, drumming becomes a spontaneous celebration of shared humanity. Corporate retreats and team-building workshops have embraced drumming for its unique ability to foster collaboration. Programs led by organizations like RhythmWorks guide employees through call and response exercises and ensemble grooves, demonstrating how individual contributions combine into a cohesive whole. Architects of these sessions argue that the non-verbal nature of drumming unveils leadership potential, sharpens listening skills, and encourages trust, all through the simple act of keeping time together. Isn't it remarkable that the same drum patterns used in ancient rites can now boost morale in modern boardrooms? In addition, therapeutic drum circles are integrated into schools and senior centers worldwide. Educators use frame drums and bongos to teach math and language through rhythm-based exercises, turning complex fractions or syllable patterns into memorable beats. Geriatric therapists employ soft hand drums to support motor coordination and cognitive function in elderly participants. Studies have shown that regular drumming activities can improve memory retention and mood in Alzheimer's patients, underscoring rhythm's deep-rooted connection to the human psyche. Can you imagine a world where curriculum and care are both guided by the simple mathematics of a drum beat? Cultural heritage organizations work tirelessly to safeguard endangered percussion traditions. UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage list now recognizes several drumming forms, including Japan's tsugaru shamisen drumming and Mali's djembe making craft, ensuring that elder masters transmit their knowledge to apprentices. In locales where globalization threatens local arts, these programs provide funding for workshops, instrument-making apprenticeships, and cultural exchanges. Isn't it heartening that even as the world shrinks, we commit to preserving the distinct voices of every drum lineage? Finally, social media challenges, like drumming duets on TikTok, have spawned a new generation of viral percussion collaborations. A tabla player in Mumbai and a taiko drummer in Osaka can film side-by-side performances, layering their rhythms in a seamless duet. Fans recreate these mashups, adding conga slaps or cajon taps, creating ever-expanding fractals of global rhythm. Have you ever been part of a trend that unites millions through nothing more than a phone, a drum, and a willingness to share the beat? As we approach our final chunk, it's clear that drumming's story is far from over. From prehistoric skull drums to AI-generated rhythms, from sacred temples to digital platforms, the drum has been our constant companion, enabling communication, healing, celebration, and innovation. In our last section, we'll reflect on drumming's enduring legacy and its boundless future, proving that the heartbeat we set in motion thousands of years ago still guides the world today. In our final segment, we pause to reflect on drumming's unbroken arc, from the first hollow logs resonating around Paleolithic campfires to the thundering transcontinental beats of today's global festivals. Drumming began as a primal assertion of presence, a way for humans to mark territory, signal kin, and commune with unseen forces. Over millennia, it evolved through battlefields and royal courts, found expression in sacred temples and village squares, and ultimately coalesced into the ever-versatile drum kit that powers modern music. Yet drumming's deepest power lies not in complexity, but in simplicity, the act of striking a surface in time. Whether you tap a finger on a tabletop or unleash a double bass drum barrage in a stadium, you participate in a ritual as old as humanity itself. Have you ever felt the transformative spark when your heartbeat aligns with a rhythm that seems to echo through every cell in your body? That spark is drumming's gift, an instinctive unifier that transcends language, culture, and era. Looking ahead, emerging technologies promise new horizons. AI-driven composition tools that suggest novel grooves, wearable haptic devices that let us feel rhythm in new dimensions, and virtual reality environments where drummers can perform alongside holographic collaborators from around the globe. Yet, no matter how sophisticated the tools become, the essence remains unchanged. A human impulse to create, connect, and celebrate through the pulse of percussion. In classrooms and clinics, drumming continues to heal and educate. In studios and clubs, it fuels innovation and dance. In homes and hearts, it provides solace and solidarity. Through every boom of bass, snap of snare, and whisper of cymbal, drumming reminds us of our shared humanity. As you carry these rhythms forward, whether on a handcrafted djembe, an ancient frame drum, or a cutting-edge electronic pad, know that you are part of a lineage stretching back tens of thousands of years. So pick up your sticks, brushes, or hands. Feel the drum speak beneath your touch. Join the countless voices past, present, and future who have answered the call of percussion. After all, the drum beat never ends. It simply waits for the next hand to bring it to life.